Detective Maya Rodriguez had waited 15 years for this moment. Standing in front of her brand new house in Willowbrook Estates, she couldn't help but smile. The morning sun made everything look perfect. Her front yard stretched out like a green carpet, and the flowers she'd planted last week were already starting to bloom. Maya loved Saturday mornings like this. No phone calls from work, no drug dealers to chase, no undercover assignments that kept her away from home for weeks. Just her, some gardening gloves, and a bag full of colorful flowers from the nursery. She knelt down near her mailbox and started digging small holes for the new plants. The soil felt good between her fingers. It was real. It was hers. After years of living in tiny apartments and hotel rooms, having her own piece of land felt like winning the lottery. The neighborhood was everything she'd dreamed of. Big houses with perfectly cut grass, tree-lined streets that looked like something from a movie, kids riding bikes on sidewalks that actually had sidewalks. Maya had grown up in a part of town where grass was a luxury and trees were few and far between. As she worked, Maya thought about her mother. If only she could see this place. Her mom had cleaned houses in neighborhoods just like this one, but she'd never owned one. "Someday, baby," she used to tell Maya. "Someday we'll have a house with a big yard and flowers everywhere." Maya wiped her eyes and kept planting. Her mother would have loved this. A white car drove slowly past her house. Maya noticed but didn't think much of it. New neighborhoods always had people driving around, looking at houses, checking out the area. She'd done the same thing before buying her place. The car came back 10 minutes later, moving even slower this time. Maya looked up from her flowers and watched it pass. The windows were tinted so she couldn't see who was inside. Something about it felt off, but Maya told herself she was being paranoid. 15 years as a cop would do that to you. She went back to her gardening, humming a song her mother used to sing while she cooked. The sun was getting warmer and Maya could smell someone nearby grilling food. It smelled like home, like the kind of Saturday morning she'd always wanted. Maya had bought this house with every penny she'd saved. No husband to help with the payments. No family money to fall back on. Just her own hard work and determination. The FBI paid well, especially for someone willing to do the dangerous undercover work that most agents avoided. For the past 5 years, Maya had been living as someone else. Different name, different job, different life. She'd gotten so good at pretending to be other people that sometimes she forgot who she really was. But here, in her own yard, wearing old jeans and a t-shirt with dirt under her fingernails, she felt like herself again. The white car passed by a third time. This time, Maya paid attention. She memorized the license plate and made a mental note of the make and model. Old habits never died, especially when you'd spent years watching for people who might want to hurt you. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from her partner at work asking if she wanted to grab lunch later. She typed back that she was busy with house stuff, but maybe next weekend. It felt good to have plans that didn't involve catching bad guys. A jogger ran past and waved. Maya waved back even though she didn't know the woman. That's what people did in neighborhoods like this. They were friendly. They looked out for each other. Maya hoped it would stay that way. She planted the last flower and stood up to admire her work. The front yard looked completely different now. Bright yellows and deep purples lined the walkway to her front door. It looked like the kind of place where a normal person lived. The kind of person who worked regular hours and worried about normal things like whether the flowers would bloom and if it might rain. Maya gathered up her gardening tools and headed toward the garage. That's when she noticed 2 men standing across the street looking at her house. They weren't joggers or dog walkers. They were just standing there watching. She pretended not to see them and kept walking. In her line of work, Maya had learned that the best way to handle suspicious people was to act normal while staying alert. She put her tools away and went inside to wash her hands. From her kitchen window, Maya could still see the 2 men. They were talking to each other and pointing at her house. One of them was writing something in a small notebook. Maya's cop instincts kicked in. Normal neighbors didn't take notes about other people's houses. She made herself a cup of coffee and sat at her kitchen table where she could watch without being obvious about it. The men stayed for another 20 minutes before walking away. Maya wrote down everything she could remember about them in case she needed it later. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe they were contractors looking for work, or real estate agents checking out the neighborhood. But Maya hadn't survived 15 years as an undercover cop by ignoring her gut feelings. And right now, her gut was telling her something wasn't right. She spent the rest of the morning doing normal Saturday things: laundry, grocery shopping, cleaning the house. But every time she looked out the window, she found herself checking the street for that white car, or those two men. By afternoon, Maya had almost convinced herself she was being paranoid. She made lunch and ate it on her back patio, enjoying the privacy of her fenced yard. The neighbors on both sides seemed quiet and friendly. An older couple on one side who always smiled and waved, a young family on the other side with two little kids who played in their backyard every evening. This was the life Maya had always wanted. Normal neighbors, a safe street, a place where she could just be herself. She'd worked too hard and waited too long to let a little paranoia ruin it. As the sun started to set, Maya decided to water her new flowers. She wanted to make sure they had the best chance to grow. As she stood in her front yard with the garden hose, she felt proud of what she'd accomplished. This house, this yard, this life, she'd earned every bit of it. That's when the white car drove by again, slower than ever. This time Maya was ready. She casually pulled out her phone and took a picture. If these people were up to something, she wanted evidence. Maya finished watering her flowers and went inside. She double-checked that all her doors and windows were locked, then sat down to research the license plate number she'd memorized earlier. Tomorrow was Sunday, and she planned to enjoy it just as much as today. But tonight she'd sleep with her service weapon close by, just in case her instincts were right. Sunday morning started like any other peaceful day in Willowbrook Estates. Maya woke up early and made coffee, then stepped outside to check on her newly planted flowers. The morning air was crisp and clean, and her yellow roses were already perking up from yesterday's watering. She was wearing old jeans and a simple t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. This was her day off, and she planned to enjoy every minute of it. Maya had learned to treasure these quiet moments between the chaos of her work life. As she knelt down to pull a few weeds that had sprouted overnight, Maya heard footsteps on the sidewalk. She looked up to see two men walking toward her house. Something about the way they moved made her pause. Their steps were too purposeful, too direct. Both men wore what looked like security uniforms. Navy blue shirts with patches on the sleeves, black pants, and utility belts. The older man had gray hair and walked with the kind of authority that suggested he was used to being in charge. The younger one was tall and thin, with nervous energy that reminded Maya of a rookie cop on his first day. "Excuse me, miss," the older man called out as they approached her property line. "We need to speak with you." Maya stood up slowly, brushing dirt off her knees. Her training told her to stay calm and assess the situation. These men looked official, but something felt wrong. Their uniforms seemed off somehow, though she couldn't pinpoint exactly why. "Can I help you with something?" Maya asked, keeping her voice friendly but careful. The older man stepped closer to her fence. "I'm Officer Bennett with HOA Security. This is Officer Clark. We've received several reports about suspicious activity at this address." Maya felt her eyebrows raise. Suspicious activity? What kind of suspicious activity? Officer Bennett pulled out a small notebook and flipped through a few pages. "Neighbors have reported seeing an unknown individual on this property multiple times over the past week. Someone who doesn't appear to live here." "I see," Maya said slowly. "And who exactly reported this?" The younger officer, Clark, spoke up for the first time. "Ma'am, we're not at liberty to reveal our sources. We just need to verify who you are and what you're doing on this property." Maya looked from one man to the other. In her 15 years of law enforcement, she'd dealt with enough security personnel to know what real officers looked and acted like. These two were setting off every alarm bell in her head. "This is my house," Maya said simply. "I bought it 3 weeks ago and I've been living here ever since." Officer Bennett wrote something in his notebook. "Do you have identification that proves you live here? Property deed, rental agreement, something like that?" Maya crossed her arms. "Officers, can I see your identification first? I'd like to verify who you are before I show you any of my personal documents." The two men exchanged a quick glance. Officer Clark shifted his weight from one foot to the other, and Maya noticed his hand move toward his belt. That's when she saw it. His badge wasn't pinned to his shirt like a... "At her feet. That's enough of this nonsense. You're coming with us right now." Maya fought back with everything she had. She kicked at Clark's shins and twisted out of Bennett's grip, using moves she'd learned during her undercover training. But the two men were bigger and stronger, and they were getting desperate. "Why are you doing this?" Maya gasped, still trying to buy time. "What did the neighbors supposedly report about me?" Clark laughed, but there was no humor in it. Lady, nobody reported anything. We've been watching you for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Bennett shot his partner a furious look. I told you to shut up. Now Maya had confirmation. These men weren't responding to neighbor complaints. They were professional contractors who had been conducting surveillance on her home, learning her routines, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. Maya could hear sirens in the distance, still too far away but getting closer. She just had to hold on a little longer. The FBI knows who you are, Maya said, hoping to make them think twice about continuing their attack. They're recording this entire conversation. If you hurt me, they'll hunt you down. Bennett's grip on her arm tightened. Then we better make this quick. That's when Maya realized these men weren't going to be scared off by threats of FBI retaliation. They were committed to finishing what they'd been paid to do, regardless of the consequences. The sirens were getting louder now. Maya could tell they were close, maybe just a few blocks away. But Bennett and Clark could hear them too, and they were starting to panic. We need to get her out of here, Clark said urgently. Right now. Maya braced herself for one final struggle. Whatever happened in the next 30 seconds would determine whether she lived or died. The sirens were getting louder by the second. Maya could tell they were close now, maybe just 2 or 3 blocks away. But Bennett and Clark could hear them too, and the sound was making them desperate. We have to go, Clark said, his voice tight with panic. We have to get her out of here right now. Bennett's grip on Maya's arm was bruising, but she could feel his hands shaking. These men had expected a quick, quiet operation. They hadn't planned for FBI involvement or emergency response teams. Maya kept her phone pressed to her ear, the FBI dispatcher still on the line. How close are they? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. 30 seconds, came the reply. Multiple units, fully armed tactical response. Hold your position. Bennett heard the response and his face twisted with rage. 30 seconds is too long, he snarled. Clark, help me get her to the car. Maya saw the white sedan parked about 50 yards down the street. The same car that had been circling her neighborhood for days. If they got her to that vehicle, she knew she'd never be seen alive again. No, Maya said firmly, planting her feet and using every ounce of strength to resist their attempts to drag her. I'm not going anywhere with you. Clark grabbed her other arm, and now both men were pulling her toward the street. Maya's feet slipped on the grass as they overpowered her, but she kept fighting. She twisted and kicked, making it as difficult as possible for them to move her. Neighbors were coming out of their houses now, drawn by the commotion and the approaching sirens. Maya could see phones being held up, recording everything. At least there would be evidence of what happened here, no matter how this ended. Help me, Maya shouted to the growing crowd of onlookers. These men are trying to kidnap me. Call 911. We already did, someone called back. Police are coming. Bennett looked around at all the witnesses and cell phone cameras with growing frustration. This was supposed to have been a clean operation, probably disguised as a routine security matter that no one would question until it was too late. The sirens were so loud now that Maya could barely hear her own thoughts. They seemed to be coming from multiple directions, surrounding the neighborhood. The FBI wasn't taking any chances with one of their own agents. Suddenly, Clark let go of Maya's arm and took a step back. This is crazy, he said to Bennett. We need to abort. There are too many witnesses. Bennett wasn't giving up so easily. We finished the job, he said through gritted teeth. That's what we're being paid for. Maya used the momentary confusion to break free from Bennett's grip. She stumbled backward, putting distance between herself and the 2 men while keeping her phone connection open. That's when the first FBI vehicle came around the corner. It was a black SUV with tinted windows, and it was moving fast. Too fast for a normal residential street. The vehicle screeched to a halt at the end of Maya's driveway, and 4 agents in tactical gear jumped out before it had fully stopped. FBI. Everyone on the ground now. The shout came from Agent Davis, Maya's former partner, whom she recognized immediately. He was pointing an assault rifle at Bennett and Clark, who both froze like deer in headlights. More vehicles were arriving now. Another black SUV from the opposite direction, and 2 police cars with their lights flashing. Maya counted at least 8 armed agents emerging from the vehicles, all of them moving with the precise coordination of a well-trained tactical team. Bennett and Clark looked around wildly, realizing they were completely surrounded. Clark immediately dropped to his knees and put his hands behind his head. He'd clearly decided that cooperation was his best chance of survival. Bennett was still holding onto Maya's arm, as if she could somehow serve as a human shield against 8 federal agents with automatic weapons. "Let her go," Agent Davis shouted. "Release the agent and step away." Maya felt Bennett's grip loosen slightly. She could see the calculation in his eyes, trying to figure out if he had any way out of this situation. The answer was obvious to everyone watching. He didn't. "Agent Rodriguez, are you injured?" Another tactical agent called out. Maya recognized the voice as Agent Chen from the local FBI field office. "I'm okay," Maya replied, though her arms were sore where Bennett and Clark had grabbed her, and her palms were scraped from hitting the pavement. Bennett finally let go of her arm and took a step back, but he didn't get on the ground like his partner. Instead, he reached for something on his belt. Every FBI agent in the area instantly focused their weapons on him. "Drop it," Davis shouted. "Drop whatever you're reaching for." Maya could see what Bennett was going for. Not a weapon, but a small radio clipped to his belt. He was trying to contact someone, probably to report that the operation had failed. Agent Chen moved swiftly to Bennett's left while Davis approached from the right. They worked together to tackle him to the ground before he could complete his radio call. Bennett fought back briefly, but against 2 trained federal agents in full tactical gear, he didn't stand a chance. Within seconds, both Bennett and Clark were handcuffed and lying face down on Maya's front lawn. The same lawn where she'd been peacefully planting flowers just 24 hours earlier. Maya looked around at the scene unfolding in her front yard. FBI agents were securing the area. Neighbors were watching from behind yellow crime scene tape that had appeared from nowhere, and 2 attempted assassins were being read their rights on her own property. Agent Davis approached Maya carefully, his weapon now lowered but still ready. "Maya, we need to get you checked out by medical personnel, and then we need a full debrief on everything that happened here." Maya nodded, finally allowing herself to feel the full impact of what had just occurred. If the FBI hadn't been monitoring cartel communications, if they hadn't called when they did, if backup hadn't arrived so quickly, she would probably be dead right now. "How did you know?" Maya asked Davis as paramedics arrived to check her injuries. "How did you find out about the contract?" Davis smiled grimly. "Remember that wiretap we put on the cartel's communication network last year? Turns out they never changed their encryption codes after we arrested their tech guy. We've been listening to their plans for weeks." Maya watched as Bennett and Clark were loaded into separate FBI vehicles. Neither man was talking now, but she knew that would change once they were in federal custody, facing life sentences for attempting to murder a federal agent. The white sedan was being searched by evidence technicians, who would undoubtedly find weapons, surveillance equipment, and whatever else these men had brought to complete their mission. Maya's quiet Sunday morning in her peaceful neighborhood was over. But thanks to the quick thinking of her FBI colleagues and a little bit of luck, she was alive to see another day. As the paramedics finished checking her injuries and declared her physically unharmed, Maya looked at her house. Her front door was still open from when she'd tried to run inside. Her gardening tools were scattered across the lawn. Her new flowers were trampled from the struggle, but she was alive and the men who had come to kill her were in federal custody. That was enough for now. 3 days after the incident, Maya sat in the FBI field office conference room, reviewing surveillance footage with Agent Davis and the investigation team. The evidence against Bennett and Clark was overwhelming. Both men had been carrying unlicensed firearms, fake law enforcement credentials, and detailed surveillance photos of Maya's house and daily routines. But what shocked everyone most was what they discovered. During the investigation into how the assassins had found Maya's address in the first place, "You need to see this," Agent Chen said, pulling up a series of recorded phone calls on his laptop. "We traced the cartel's information source, and it's not what any of us expected." Maya leaned forward as Chen played the first recording. It was a woman's voice speaking to someone on what appeared to be a tip line. "Yes, I'd like to report suspicious activity in Willowbrook Estates," the voice said. "There's a black woman who's been hanging around one of the expensive houses on Maple Street. She doesn't look like she belongs in this neighborhood, and I'm concerned she might be casing the place for a robbery." Maya felt her stomach drop. Agent Davis shook his head in disbelief. Chen played another recording, this one from a different caller. "I want to report someone who's been trespassing on my neighbor's property. She's there almost every day, and I don't think the homeowner knows about it. Someone should check it out before something bad happens." And another. There's been a suspicious person in our neighborhood for over a week now. She appears to be conducting surveillance on one of the houses. This is a safe, family-oriented community, and we're concerned about criminal activity. Maya counted 7 different calls, all describing her as a suspicious person or potential criminal simply for being in her own front yard. The callers had provided detailed descriptions of her activities, her schedule, and even her license plate number. The fake HOA tip line was set up by the cartel specifically to gather intelligence on you, Chen explained. They knew that concerned neighbors would call to report anything unusual, so they created a phone number and had it distributed through social media as a neighborhood safety resource. Maya stared at the evidence in front of her. Her own neighbors, people who lived just a few houses away from her, had unknowingly helped hired killers track her movements and plan her assassination. The callers had no idea they were talking to criminals, Davis added quickly. They thought they were protecting their neighborhood, but their assumptions about who belonged there and who didn't nearly got you killed. Over the next few weeks, as the investigation continued, Maya learned more details that painted an even clearer picture of how the attack had been planned. The cartel had studied FBI personnel files until they identified Maya as the agent whose testimony had been most damaging to their organization. They'd tracked her new address through public property records, then used social media to research the Willowbrook Estates community. They'd discovered that the neighborhood had an active online presence, with residents regularly posting about suspicious activity and maintaining property values. The cartel had exploited this by creating fake social media accounts and encouraging residents to be vigilant about reporting unusual people in the area. The fake HOA tip line had received dozens of calls over several weeks, but the ones about Maya were the most detailed and useful for planning an attack. The neighbors who called had inadvertently provided a complete dossier on Maya's daily routines, the times when she was most vulnerable, and even which days she appeared to be home alone. Bennett and Clark had used this information to plan what should have been a perfect operation. They would approach Maya under the pretense of responding to neighbor complaints, gain her trust by acting like legitimate security officers, then remove her from the property under the guise of investigating a HOA violation. The plan had only failed because the FBI happened to be monitoring cartel communications at the exact moment Maya was being attacked. A month later, Maya stood before a packed community meeting in the Willowbrook Estates clubhouse. Every seat was filled and people were standing along the walls. The local news media was there too, covering what had become a national story about racial profiling and community safety. Maya looked out at the crowd of her neighbors, many of whom she was meeting for the first time despite living among them for weeks. Some looked embarrassed. Others seemed defensive. A few appeared genuinely shocked to learn that their phone calls had been used by criminals. "I want to start by saying that I don't blame anyone in this room for what happened," Maya began. "You thought you were protecting your community, and that's a natural instinct." She paused, looking around the room at faces that reflected a range of emotions. "But I do want us all to think about why I seemed suspicious to so many people. I was doing exactly what any new homeowner would do, gardening, maintaining my property, enjoying my own front yard. The only thing that made me stand out was the color of my skin." An older woman in the front row raised her hand. "We had no idea you lived there," she said. "We thought someone was trespassing. Did you ever consider just walking over and introducing yourself?" Maya asked gently. "Did anyone think to welcome the new neighbor instead of calling to report her?" The room was quiet for a long moment. Maya continued. "I'm not asking anyone to apologize, and I'm not here to make you feel guilty. I'm here because I want us to learn from this. I want us to build the kind of community where people feel safe approaching each other with questions instead of immediately assuming the worst." Over the following months, Willowbrook Estates underwent a remarkable transformation. The community organized monthly meet-and-greet events where neighbors could get to know each other. They started a formal welcome program for new residents. Most importantly, they began having honest conversations about unconscious bias and the assumptions people make about others. Maya became an unexpected leader in these efforts. Her calm, thoughtful approach to addressing racial profiling earned respect even from neighbors who had initially been resistant to change. The criminal investigation continued to unfold as well. Bennett and Clark both pleaded guilty to attempted murder of a federal agent and were sentenced to life in prison without parole. The broader cartel investigation led to arrests across 3 states and the seizure of millions of dollars in assets. Most satisfying to Maya was the fact that every person who had used the fake tip line to report her was contacted by the FBI and educated about how their calls had been exploited. Many of them reached out to Maya personally to express their regret and their commitment to being better neighbors in the future. 6 months after the attack, Maya's front yard had become something of a neighborhood showcase. Her flowers were thriving and neighbors regularly stopped by to chat and admire her gardening work. Children played in her yard while their parents visited on weekend afternoons. Maya had found something she'd never expected when she bought her house in Willowbrook Estates, a real community. Not the kind that existed only on social media or in emergency phone calls, but the kind built on actual relationships between people who knew and cared about each other. Standing in her garden on a quiet Sunday morning, watching kids play while their parents talked and laughed together, Maya smiled. Her mother would have loved this. Not just the house with the big yard and beautiful flowers, but the community of neighbors who had become friends. It had taken a near-death experience to get there, but Maya had finally found the home she'd always dreamed of, and she'd helped her neighbors understand that home isn't just about the property you own. It's about the people you choose to build a life alongside.